Ninth grade biology teacher Judy Jones is National Board Certified. Her teaching practice best exemplifies a thorough knowledge of her subject matter, a systematic approach to her practice, and how she has learned from experience.
I am moving more toward trying to let my students have experiences first, like labs or activities or discussions, and then letting them develop the knowledge that comes out of that with my help and guidance and so on, rather than providing information first and then having an activity that simply affirms the information.
Because the point of this lab was for you to understand the test, be able to recognize a positive test or a negative test for those solutions. Because next week you're going to need to use them in a very open-ended experience.
The idea of creating interdisciplinary connections hasn't been lost. There's a real focus now on all those things you need to have to get into college. So I think even the public is a little afraid of experiments that are focused on interdisciplinary learning and critical thinking and problem solving and discussions. They're nervous about it, not because they don't believe in it. I think everybody thinks that sounds good, but because they don't know if it's going to look good on a transcript. I have 124 students this year, and each one of them really is a unique learner, if you think about it. Each one has their own best way of learning. And one thing I'm trying to do, like with my ninth grade biology classes, I did a brief little learning styles assessment with them. And then they had to create a concept map that described them and what each of their best learning styles was. Like, are they an active or a reflective learner? Are they a visual or a verbal learner? And they got some data, which is more or less accurate, that came out of this assessment that they did. And whether the information is highly accurate or not, my hypothesis is it probably changes over time depending on their age too, a little of this. But I think the value is that I got them thinking about how they learn. So I want the students thinking about how they learn best. Are you a visual learner? Then you better have notes. You better be creating maps. You better be doing this. Are you a verbal learner? Then maybe you better really focus on listening to that teacher and maybe having conversations with other people about what you've learned to try and make that clearer. If you're an active learner, then you ought to be getting study groups together so that you can work with a study group, which I don't think high school students do very much. I think one of the biggest challenges with the technology is to learn to use the technology where it really does improve student learning and not just use it for technology's sake. I think research on the web has been great in my Biology 2 class because there's medical sites and university sites that have information my students would never have had access to in a regular library. So that's been wonderful to do research. There's also several things that have been put on the web that are interactive for students that I think have been valuable for my kids. Teachers are lifelong learners too. We have the goal of having our students be lifelong learners, and if we're not involved in the process of lifelong learning, we lose that zest and enthusiasm we have for what we're doing. And I've learned over time that students really respond to teachers who are excited about what they're teaching. That's just critical in a classroom, I think. So I think professional development needs to have that piece where the teacher feels excited because they're either learning something new about what they teach, like I'm very excited about all this stuff going on in genetics, or you're excited about a new way of teaching. So the pedagogy is exciting. And I think that when you connect with other teachers, it's synergy. You share ideas. You come away with new things that you're going to try, and things that people have said really work with working with different kinds of learners. It just changes teachers to be able to go and work with other teachers and find out what's going on, not only in this state, but in other countries and in other states. A few years ago, I went up to Princeton for a summer, for a month actually, to do a human genetics workshop because that's a sort of a passion of mine, and man, was my learning curve stretched. It was wonderful, but I was able to bring back many activities for the students and even sort of change what we do in our school. We now do bacterial transformations with all our ninth graders. We do a mini electrophoresis gel with all our ninth graders, which I don't think would have happened if I wasn't able to bring back, that learning that had happened up in the at that workshop. I just think you have to understand that if you're going to improve instruction for students, you need to keep your teachers excited, involved in learning. I don't want to be doing something where I'm spinning my wheels and it's not making a difference. I want what I do to be effective. And so I'm continually looking at the activities that I do, et cetera, and seeing if they're really effective in helping students learn. I want to know how they learn best. I want to know what I need to do to help them learn best.
So if any of the rest of you have that experience, check with some other groups and see what they got.
I mean, if we're not going to do that, why are we in the business?